The Grand Assembly Hall floated in the endless black of space, circling a gray world called Velar Prime. Inside this massive station, 4,000 aliens from across the galaxy sat in their seats. They came from hundreds of different worlds. Some had scales, some had fur. Some had no bodies at all, just clouds of light that spoke through machines. This was the Galactic Council, the place where all the great species came to talk, to trade, and sometimes to fight with words instead of weapons. Una Park stood at the center of the hall. She was small compared to most of the aliens around her. Her black hair was tied back, and she wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic service. 17 years ago, humans had earned their seat on this council. 17 years was nothing to species that had traveled the stars for 10,000 years. To them, humans were still babies, new, weak, unimportant. But Una was not afraid. She had spent her whole life preparing for moments like this. She looked up at the thousands of faces watching her and began to speak. "Honored delegates," she said, her voice calm and clear. "I come before you today to request emergency assistance. In the past 3 months, 14 human cargo ships have been destroyed in our outer territories. Over 2,000 of our people are dead. Families, workers, children traveling to new colony worlds." The hall was quiet. Some aliens whispered to each other. Others simply stared. Una continued. "We have investigated these attacks. The ships were destroyed by military-grade weapons. This was not an accident. This was not space debris. Someone is hunting our people, and we asked the Council for help in finding those responsible." She finished speaking and waited. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a figure rose from the seats above her. His name was Vorn. He was a delegate from the Keth Dominion, one of the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. The Keth were tall, with gray skin and 4 arms. They had ruled their corner of space for 8,000 years, and they did not like sharing power with anyone, especially not with young species like humanity. Vorn walked slowly down the steps toward the central platform. His 4 arms were folded behind his back. His eyes, dark and cold, never left Una's face. "Ambassador Park," he said, his voice deep and smooth like oil. "I have listened to your words with great interest." Una nodded politely. "Thank you, Delegate Vorn." Vorn smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "However, I must ask a question. If humanity cannot protect its own shipping lanes, if humanity cannot keep its own people safe, then perhaps—" He paused, looking around at the watching delegates. "Perhaps humanity expanded too quickly. Perhaps you reached for the stars before you were ready." Whispers filled the hall. Una felt her heart beat faster, but she kept her face calm. Warren was not finished. "The Keth Dominion has protected its territories for thousands of years. We have the ships. We have the strength. We have the experience." He turned back to Una, his smile growing wider. "Perhaps, Ambassador, if humanity cannot defend its outer colonies, those colonies should be given to species more capable." The whispers became louder. Some aliens nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable. But no one spoke against Vorn. The Keth were too powerful, and no one wanted to make them angry. Una took a slow breath. She wanted to shout at him. She wanted to tell him that humanity had fought its way to the stars through blood and sacrifice. She wanted to remind him that humans had faced extinction on their own world and survived, but she was a diplomat. Her job was to speak carefully, to play the long game. "I thank the delegate for his advice," she said quietly. "But Earth will protect its own people. We always have." Vorn laughed softly. "We shall see, Ambassador. We shall see." He turned and walked back to his seat, his forearms swinging at his sides. The session ended an hour later. Nothing was decided. No help was offered. Una walked back to the human quarters alone, her footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. Inside her office, a screen was already flashing. An urgent message. She sat down and opened it. The face of Commander Tai Ho Shin appeared. He was aboard the UES Resolve, one of Earth's newest warships, currently patrolling the outer territories. His face was serious. "Ambassador," he said, "we found something. The debris from the cargo ship Bright Star. We pulled data from the black box. Yuna leaned forward. What did you find? Taiho paused. His jaw was tight. The weapons that destroyed our ships, they were not pirate weapons. They were not unknown. We matched the energy signatures. He took a breath. They were Keth military weapons, top of the line. It's the kind only used by their official navy. Yuna felt the blood drain from her face. Are you certain? 100%, Taiho said. Ambassador, this was not random. The Keth destroyed our ships. They killed our people. Based on the attack patterns, this was planned, organized. Someone high up gave the orders. Yuna closed her eyes. She thought about Vorn's smile, his words, his confidence. He had not been guessing when he spoke about humanity's weakness. He had known. He had known because he was the one behind the attacks. Send everything to Earth Command, she said quietly. Encrypted. Use the highest security codes we have. Already done, Taiho said, Ambassador. What are we going to do? Yuna opened her eyes. She looked at the stars through her window. Somewhere out there, 2,000 human souls had died because one alien politician wanted to teach humanity a lesson. Because he thought humans were weak. Because he thought no one would ever find out. We are going to do what humans always do, Commander, she said. We are going to remember. We are going to make sure the galaxy never forgets what happens when you hurt our people. She ended the call and sat alone in the darkness. The stars seemed very cold, but somewhere deep inside her chest, something burned. It was not fear. It was not sadness. It was rage. And rage, she knew, was something humanity had carried with them since the caves. It was the fire that had driven them across oceans, across continents, across the black void of space itself. Vorn thought he had broken humanity with his attacks. He thought he had scared them into silence. He had no idea what he had truly awakened. 3 days after Yuna sent her message, the leaders of Earth gathered in Seoul. The United Earth Command Center was built deep underground, beneath a mountain that had watched over Korea for millions of years. Inside, the most powerful humans in the galaxy sat around a long table made of dark wood. Fleet Admiral Do Kong sat at the head of the table. He was 63 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face like weathered stone. He had commanded ships for 40 years. He had fought pirates, rebels, and hostile aliens. But he had never faced anything like this. To his right sat Director Hannah Lee of Earth Intelligence. She was younger, with sharp eyes that seemed to see through everything. Her job was to know secrets, and right now, she knew the darkest secret in the galaxy. To his left sat General Minho Beek of the Expeditionary Forces. He was a soldier through and through, with thick arms and a scar across his chin from a battle long ago. When words failed, Minho's soldiers were the ones who went in. Admiral Kong looked at the data on the screens around them. Ship signatures, weapon traces, communication logs. All of it pointed to one truth. The Keth did this, he said slowly. Delegate Vorn gave the orders himself. We have proof. Hannah nodded. Our agents confirmed it. Vorn used 3 Keth warships running under false identification. They attacked our cargo vessels, destroyed them, and then disappeared back into Keth space. He thought we would never find out.
General Minho
Slammed his fist on the table.
2,000 dead.
Families, children, and that gray-skinned bastard. Stood in front of the whole council and told us we were weak. His voice shook with anger. What are we going to do about it? Admiral Kang was quiet for a long moment, thought about his own grandchildren, thought about the families who would never see their loved ones again. He thought about what? Humanity had survived to reach the stars. Wars, plagues, disasters, the slow death of their own planet before they learned to heal it. If we go to the council with this evidence, Hannah said carefully, you might sanction the Keth. Maybe, but the Keth have friends. They have power. They've been playing politics for 8,000 years. They will deny everything. They will delay. They will bury this in committees and investigations until everyone forgets. And our people stay dead, Minho said bitterly. Yes, Hannah said quietly. Our people stay dead, and Vorn stays free. Admiral Kang stood up. He walked to the window. Even though there was no window, just a screen showing the surface above, the green mountains of Korea, under a blue sky. "The galaxy thinks we are young," he said slowly. "They think we are weak. They think we will cry to the council and beg for help." He turned back to face them. "What if we do something different? What if we say nothing at all?" Anna frowned. "Say nothing?" "Nothing," Kong repeated. "We pull Ambassador Park out of council sessions. We stop all communication with the Keth. We go completely silent." General Minho leaned forward, a dangerous light in his eyes. "And while we are silent," Kong said, "we prepare. Every shipyard war, K's triple shifts. Every reserve soldier gets called back. Every weapon we have gets loaded and ready." His voice dropped low. "We give them silence, and then we give them war." The room was very still. This was not a small decision. This would change everything. Humanity had always tried to be peaceful, to trade, to cooperate. But there were older laws than diplomacy. Laws written in blood and fire since the first human picked up a stone to defend his family. "The other species will watch," Hannah said. "They will wonder what we are doing." "Let them wonder," Kong said. "Let them see that humanity does not beg. We do not plead. When someone hurts us, we hurt them back. Harder, faster, until they can never hurt us again." He looked at each of them in turn. "Do I have your support?" One by one, they nodded. Hana Minho. The other commanders around the table. This was the moment humanity chose its path. The silence began. For 3 weeks, no human attended the council sessions. The chair where Unipark usually sat remained empty. Messages from other species went unanswered. Trade negotiations were paused. Human ships pulled back from shared space lanes. The galaxy noticed. How could they not? Humanity had been so eager, so friendly, so desperate to make allies. Now they were ghosts. Rumors spread. Some said the humans were afraid. Some said they were dying from a plague. Some said they had given up and were retreating to their home system. Vorn heard the rumors and smiled. He told anyone who would listen that humanity had finally learned their place. He gave speeches about how the younger species needed to respect their elders. He was so proud of himself, so certain that he had one. But in the shadow of Jupiter, far from any alien eyes, something was happening. The shipyards of Ganymede worked day and night. Sparks flew in the darkness as welders built new hulls. Engines roared as old ships were upgraded with new weapons. Soldiers trained in zero gravity, learning to fight in ways no alien had ever seen. Admiral Sun Wu-Cho stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the Hammer of Earth. It was the largest warship humanity had ever built, bristling with weapons that could crack open a small moon. Beside him stood Captain Jian No, commander of the marine forces that would follow the fleet into battle. "How much longer?" Jian asked, looking out at the ships gathering in the darkness. "1 more week," Sun Wu said. "Then we move." Jian nodded. She was not a woman who smiled often, but there was something fierce in her eyes. "The Keth think they broke us." "They did," Sun Wu said quietly. "They broke the old humanity, the one that wanted to be friends with everyone, the one that believed in talking." He turned to look at her. "What comes next is something different, something the galaxy has never seen." "What is that?" Sun Wu looked back at the fleet. 100 ships. 10,000 soldiers. The rage of an entire species, forged into steel and fire. "Revenge," he said simply. Across the galaxy, the silence continued. The aliens whispered and wondered. Vorn celebrated his victory, and humanity counted down the days until the stars themselves would burn. The Keth border system of Maltos was quiet that morning. 2 suns hung in the purple sky, casting long shadows across the military base below. 30,000 Keth soldiers lived there, guarding the gateway to Dominion space. They had the best weapons, the strongest shields, 8,000 years of military tradition behind them. Commander Vorath stood on the observation deck, drinking something hot from a metal cup. He was bored. Nothing ever happened at Maltos. The humans were silent, probably crying in their little corner of the galaxy. The other species were too scared to challenge the Keth. Life was peaceful, predictable and dull. Then the alarm started screaming. Vorath dropped his cup. The hot liquid splashed across the floor, but he did not notice. He ran to the sensor station, pushing past the soldiers who were already shouting in confusion. "What is it?" he demanded. "What is happening?" The sensor officer's face was pale gray, almost white. His 4 hands were shaking as they moved across the controls. "Ships, Commander. Coming out of hyperspace. Many ships." "How many?" The officer looked up at him with terror in his eyes. "All of them." Sky above Maltos tore open. Light bent and twisted as hyperspace gates ripped through reality. And through those gates came the human fleet. The hammer of Earth came first, its massive hull blocking out the stars. Behind it came cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and dozens of smaller ships. They spread across the sky like an ocean of steel, their weapons already glowing with power. Admiral Sun Wucho stood on his bridge, watching the Keth base grow larger on the screens. Beside him, his officers waited for orders. The ship was silent, except for the hum of the engines. No one spoke. No one needed to. "This is Admiral Cho to all ships," he said calmly. "You know why we are here? You know what they did to our people? Today, we show the galaxy what happens when you hurt humanity." He paused. "All ships, open fire." The sky above Maltos turned white. Missiles screamed down from the fleet, trailing fire through the atmosphere. Energy beams cut through the air like burning swords. The Keth defense platforms tried to respond, but they were too slow. The first wave of attacks destroyed their orbital stations in seconds, turning them into clouds of burning metal that fell toward the ground like dying stars. On the surface, Commander Vorath watched in horror as his defenses crumbled. He screamed orders into his communicator, but his voice was lost in the chaos. Soldiers ran in every direction. Buildings exploded. The ground itself shook as human weapons struck the planet. "Get the fighters in the air," Vorath shouted. "Send a distress signal to the homeworld. Tell them we are under attack." But the fighters never made it off the ground. Human ships were already descending through the clouds, their guns tearing apart the landing pads before a single Keth vessel could launch. The distress signal went out, but Maltos was far from Keth Prime. Help would take days to arrive. They did not have days, Captain. Gin No stood in the dropship as it fell through the burning sky. Around her, 50 human Marines checked their weapons and armor. They were the best soldiers Earth had ever trained, veterans of a dozen campaigns against pirates and rebels. But today was different. Today they were not defending. Today they were attacking. "Listen up," Gian said, her voice cutting through the noise of the engines. "Our job is to secure the command center and capture the Keth leadership. We do this fast, we do this clean, and we do not kill anyone who surrenders." She looked at her soldiers with hard eyes. "We are not murderers. We are not terrorists. We are soldiers of Earth, and we will act with honor. But anyone who fights us will die. Understood?" "Yes, Captain." 50 voices shouted back. The dropship hit the ground hard enough to rattle Gaian's teeth. The door opened. She was running before her boots touched the dirt. The battle for Maltos lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of fire, and smoke and screaming. 6 hours of human soldiers moving through the ruins of the Keth base, clearing buildings one by one. 6 hours of the most advanced military operation humanity had ever performed. The Keth fought hard. They were proud warriors with thousands of years of tradition, but tradition could not stop bullets. Pride could not block grenades, and nothing they had could match the cold, focused rage of human soldiers who had seen pictures of dead children floating in the wreckage of cargo ships by the end. The Keth base was captured. 20,000 Keth soldiers were prisoners, sitting in long lines with their hands on their heads. The other 10,000 had either escaped or died fighting. Gin walked through the ruins toward the command center. Her armor was scorched and dented, but she was alive. Her soldiers had taken the building an hour ago, capturing Commander Vorath and his staff without killing them. Inside, the Keth commander was waiting. His 4 arms were bound behind his back. His eyes were full of hatred and confusion. "Why?" he asked when he saw Gian. "Why did you do this?" "We were at peace." Gian looked at him for a long moment. Then she pulled a small device from her belt and pressed a button. A hologram appeared in the air between them. Images of destroyed cargo ships. Lists of names. Pictures of families who would never go home. You call this peace? She said quietly. Your people killed ours. Your delegate Vorn ordered the attacks. We have proof. She stepped closer to him. Did you really think we would do nothing? Did you really think we would just accept it and move on? Vorith stared at the images. His face changed. The hatred faded, replaced by something else. Understanding. Fear Vorn, he whispered. Vorn did this? Yes, Gian said. And now the whole galaxy will know. She turned away from him and walked to the communication array. Her soldiers had already set up a broadcast system linked to every major news network in the galaxy. She took a deep breath and pressed the button. Her face appeared on screens across 1,000 worlds. My name is Captain Gian No of the United Earth Marine Corps, she said. Today, human forces have captured the Keth military base at Maltos. We have taken 30,000 prisoners. We have destroyed their defense grid. And we have proof that the Keth Dominion, under orders from Delegate Vorn, attacked and destroyed human civilian vessels, killing over 2,000 innocent people. She paused, letting the words sink in across the galaxy. This is not a border skirmish. This is not a misunderstanding. The Keth attacked our families, our children, our future, and so, by order of United Earth Command, humanity formally declares war on the Keth Dominion. She looked directly into the camera, and every alien watching felt a chill run through their body. You wanted to know what humans do when you threaten us, she said. Now you know. We do not hide. We do not run. We fight, and we win. The broadcast ended. The galaxy fell silent, and in the burning ruins of Maltos, Captain Gian No looked up at the stars and smiled. The war had begun. The news spread across the galaxy, like fire through dry grass. On 1,000 different worlds, billions of aliens watched Captain Gian No's broadcast. They saw the burning base. They saw the captured soldiers. They heard the declaration of war, and they could not believe it. In the halls of the Galactic Council, chaos erupted. Delegates shouted at each other in a dozen different languages. Some demanded that humanity be punished for this unprovoked attack. Others quietly pulled up the evidence Gian had shown, studying the weapons signatures and communication logs. A few simply sat in stunned silence. Trying to understand how the galaxy had changed so quickly, Delegate Vorn was not shouting. He sat in his chair, his four hands gripping the armrests so tightly that the metal bent beneath his fingers. His face was the color of ash. Around him, his fellow Keth delegates looked at him with new eyes. Suspicious eyes. Angry eyes. Is it true? One of them whispered. Did you really order those attacks? Vorn did not answer. His mind was racing, trying to find a way out. He had been so careful, so clever. How had the humans found proof? How had they moved so fast? He had expected them to cry and beg for months, maybe years, before doing anything. Instead, they had struck in weeks, with a precision and power that should have been impossible. The doors of the assembly hall opened. An Ambassador Una Park walked in. She looked different. The last time the council had seen her, she had been polite and careful, playing by the rules of galactic diplomacy. Now she moved like a soldier, her back straight and her eyes hard. Behind her came two human guards in full combat armor, their weapons visible at their sides. The hall fell silent. Every eye turned to watch her. Una walked to the center platform and looked up at the thousands of delegates. For a long moment, she said nothing. The silence stretched until it was almost painful. 3 weeks ago, she finally said, I stood in this hall and asked for help. Our people were dying. Our ships were burning. And what did you do? She looked around slowly. Nothing. You did nothing. Some of you even laughed. Some of you told us we deserved it. Her voice was calm, but there was something beneath it. Something cold and sharp, like ice hiding a blade. Delegate Vorn told us that humanity was weak, that we had expanded too fast, that we could not protect ourselves. She turned to look directly at Vorn. He knew this because he was the one killing us. She raised her hand, and a hologram appeared in the center of the hall. Documents, communication logs, ship signatures. Evidence so clear and complete that no one could deny it. These are Vorn's orders, Una said. His own words, telling Keth warships to attack human cargo vessels. His own signature on the documents that sentenced 2,000 innocent people to death. Still, she paused. This is not a theory. This is not an accusation. This is proof. The hall exploded into noise. Delegates shouted in outrage, in confusion, in fear. Vorn tried to stand, tried to speak, but his voice was drowned out by the chaos. Silence. The shout came from an unexpected source. High Lord Telmari, the ancient leader of the Telmari Empire, had risen from his seat. The Telmari were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, proud and powerful. They had never liked humanity. They had seen the young species as a threat to the old order, but High Lord Telmari was not looking at humanity with hatred. He was looking at Vorn. I have reviewed the evidence, the High Lord said, his deep voice carrying across the hall. It is genuine. The Keth Dominion, through Delegate Vorn, attacked human civilians without cause or warning. He turned to look at the other Keth delegates. This is not war. This is murder. And it brings shame upon your entire species. One by one, other voices joined in. The Rolani Trade Federation, longtime partners of the Keth, announced that they were cutting all ties. We cannot do business with those who slaughter innocents, their representative said. The Ocean Collective, a peaceful species known for their medical technology, offered humanitarian aid to human colonies. Whatever you need, they said, we will provide. Even smaller species, those who had never dared to speak against the Keth, began to add their voices. The Dominion had bullied them for centuries. Now finally, someone was standing up to the bullies. Someone was winning. Vorn watched his empire crumble around him. Allies became enemies. Friends became strangers. The power he had spent his whole life building turned to dust in his hands. This is not over, he snarled, rising to his feet. The Keth Dominion has 1,000 warships. We have fought wars for 8,000 years. You think one battle makes you strong? He pointed at Una with a shaking finger. We will crush you. We will burn your worlds. You will do nothing, Una interrupted calmly, because your people do not want this war. Only you do. She pressed another button on her device. New images appeared, protests on Keth worlds, citizens demanding peace, military officers refusing to follow orders. The Keth people, it seemed, had no desire to die for one politician's pride. Your own High Council is meeting right now, Una continued. They're discussing whether to remove you from power, whether to arrest you as a war criminal. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You are alone, Vorn. You have always been alone. You were just too arrogant to see it. While this was happening in the council hall, Admiral Yunji Wang was leading Earth's second fleet toward Keth Prime. Her ships moved through space like a pack of wolves, fast and silent and hungry. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Soul's Pride, watching the stars slide past. Admiral, one of her officers said, we are receiving reports from Keth Space. Their fleet is not mobilizing. Their government is in chaos. Some of their commanders are refusing to fight. Yanji nodded slowly. The Keth are not fools. They know they cannot win this war. Vorn started something he cannot finish. What do we do if they surrender? Yunji thought about the question for a long time. She thought about the dead civilians, the destroyed ships, the children who would never grow up. Part of her wanted revenge. Part of her wanted to burn Keth Prime until nothing remained but ash and memory. But that was not the human way. Not anymore. They surrender, she said finally. We accept. We take Vorn and anyone else responsible. We take reparations for our dead. And we show the galaxy that humanity can be merciful as well as strong. She looked at the stars ahead where Keth Prime waited. But if they fight, she added quietly, we will destroy them. Every ship, every base, every weapon they have, We will break them so completely that no one will ever think of attacking humanity again." The fleet flew on through the darkness. The galaxy watched, and everyone waited to see what would happen next. The Keth Dominion surrendered on the 42nd day of the war. It was not the great battle everyone expected. There were no fleets clashing in the void, no cities burning under orbital bombardment, no last stand of proud warriors fighting to the death. The war ended not with fire, but with a door opening and an old Keth politician walking out in chains, Admiral Yunji. Wang's fleet had reached Keth Prime 3 days earlier. They did not attack. They simply waited, their weapons powered down but ready. Their presence, a silent promise of what would happen if the Keth chose to fight. Inside the Keth High Council chambers, the leaders of the Dominion had argued for 72 hours straight. Some wanted to fight, some wanted to flee. But most of them, the wise ones, understood the truth. This war was already lost. Not because the Keth military was weak, but because their people would not follow them into battle. On 100 Keth worlds, citizens refused to work in weapons factories. Soldiers refused to board their ships. Parents hid their children from recruitment officers. The Keth had ruled through fear and pride for 8,000 years. But fear and pride could not stand against the simple truth. Vorn had murdered innocents. And now their entire species was paying the price in the end. The High Council made the only choice they could. They arrested Vorn themselves. They stripped him of his rank, his titles, his power, and they sent a message to the human fleet. We surrender. Take him. Take whatever you want. Just let our people live. Admiral Doyon Kong flew to Keth Prime personally to oversee the transfer. He landed his shuttle in the courtyard of the High Council building, where once the most powerful species in the galaxy had ruled without question. Now that courtyard was surrounded by human soldiers, their weapons gleaming in the pale light of the Keth sun. Vorn was brought out in chains. His forearms were bound behind his back. His gray skin was pale, almost white. His eyes, which had once looked down on humanity with such contempt, now stared at the ground. Admiral Kong stepped forward. He was an old man, his hair gray and his face lined with years of service, but his back was straight and his eyes were clear. "Delegate Vorn," he said quietly, "you are charged with ordering the murder of 2,347 human civilians. You are charged with starting a war based on lies and hatred. You are charged with crimes against peace." He paused. "Do you have anything to say?" Vorn looked up. For a moment, something of his old arrogance flickered in his eyes. "You think you have one?" he whispered. "You think this changes anything? Humanity is still young, still weak. In 1,000 years, no one will even remember your species existed." Kong studied him for a long moment. Then he shook his head slowly. "Still do not understand," he said. "You thought we were weak because we were young. You thought our kindness was fear. Our patience was cowardice. Our desire for peace was surrender." He stepped closer until his face was just inches from Vorn's. "We were never weak. We were just waiting, hoping we would not have to show you what we really are." He turned away. "Take him to the ship. He will be tried on Earth in front of the families of those he murdered." Vorn screamed as the soldiers dragged him away. He screamed about revenge, about the fall of humanity, about 1,000 threats he could never keep. No one listened. No one cared. He was already forgotten 1 week later. Ambassador Unipark stood before the Galactic Council for the last time. The hall was different now. The Keth delegation sat in their usual place, but their chairs seemed smaller somehow. Their voices were quieter. The other species looked at them with pity, not fear. And when Una walked to the center platform, every delegate rose to their feet. "Honored delegates," she said, her voice carrying across the vast chamber, "the war between humanity and the Keth Dominion is over. Delegate Vorn has been arrested and will face justice for his crimes. The Keth government has agreed to pay reparations to the families of those killed in the attacks." She paused, looking around at the thousands of faces watching her. "Humanity did not seek this war. We came to the stars hoping for friendship, for trade, for shared discovery. We wanted to learn from you. We wanted to grow alongside you. We wanted to be part of something greater than ourselves. Her voice grew harder. But we will not be victims. We will not bow to those who murder our children. We will not accept threats from those who think strength is the only language worth speaking. She raised her hand, and a hologram appeared above her, a map of the galaxy, with new borders clearly marked. The former Keth territories along the human frontier were now colored blue. By agreement with the Keth High Council, these worlds are now under human protection. Their people, both Keth and others, will live under human law. They will be treated fairly, governed justly, and defended absolutely. She looked directly at the Keth delegation. We do not take these worlds as conquerors. We take them as guardians. This is the difference between your species and ours. She lowered her hand, and the hologram faded. Let this be a lesson to the galaxy, she said quietly. Humanity remembers. Humanity endures. And humanity will never ever forget those who hurt us or those who help us. She nodded once to the silent assembly, then turned and walked out of the hall. She did not look back. 3 months later, Captain Jian No stood on a balcony overlooking the colony of New Busan. The city had been rebuilt after the war. Its towers reaching toward the sky like fingers stretching for the stars. Below her, cargo ships moved slowly through the spaceport, carrying goods and people and hope. Commander Taiho Shin stood beside her, watching the ships. The council approved the new trade agreements today, he said. The Rilani, the ocean, even the Telmari. Everyone wants to do business with humanity now. Kayon nodded but said nothing. Strange, isn't it? Taiho continued. A few months ago, they looked at us like we were children. Now they treat us like equals, maybe even superiors. That is how the galaxy works, Gion said quietly. They only respect strength, only understand power. She shook her head slowly. We showed them what we could do. Now they are afraid of us. Is that a bad thing? Gion thought about the question for a long time. She thought about the soldiers she had lost, the enemies she had killed, the screams and the fire and the long nights wondering if she had done the right thing. No, she finally said. Fear keeps them honest. Fear keeps our people safe. She looked up at the stars, where human ships now patrolled space that had once belonged to others. But I hope someday it will be different. I hope someday they will respect us not because they fear us, but because they trust us. Taiho smiled slightly. You think that day will come? Gion watched a cargo ship rise slowly into the darkening sky, its lights blinking against the stars. Somewhere out there, her people were building new colonies, exploring new worlds, reaching for a future that once seemed impossible. Yes, she said. I think it will. Humanity has always been good at two things, surviving and dreaming. She turned to look at him, and for the first time in months she smiled. We survived. Now it is time to dream. The stars glittered above them, endless and eternal, and humanity, young and fierce and full of hope, reached upward to claim its place among them. The war was over. The future had begun.